Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're going to travel back in time, way back, about 1500 years, to solve a couple of ancient legal puzzles from the Talmud. And you might be surprised, but this ancient way of thinking, well, it's pretty much a masterclass in modern problem solving. Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with this really interesting puzzle about a knife that's stuck in place, and then we'll hit a major contradiction. After that, we'll see the exact same kind of logic play out with something as simple as a reed. It's all about getting inside the minds of these ancient sages. You know, what we're about to dig into here isn't just some dusty old list of rules. Not at all. It's a method, a really meticulous, detail-obsessed, and deeply logical way of solving problems. It's a masterclass in thinking through every single possible angle. To really see how this works, let's just jump right in with a scenario that seems pretty straightforward at first. But as you'll see, the ancient scholars debated it with just incredible precision. And it all starts with a simple knife. So, our first puzzle kicks off with a rule about using a knife that's, say, stuck in a wall to perform a kosher slaughter. Sounds simple, right? But yeah, the complications start rolling in almost immediately. Okay, so the first piece of evidence from a text called a baraita seems pretty clear. A fixed blade is totally fine for a kosher slaughter. So, case closed, right? Well, not so fast. And this is where the real analysis kicks in. A scholar named Shmuel pipes up and raises a really critical point. He argues that the way the knife and the animal are positioned physically, it actually changes the entire nature of the act. So, here's the absolute crucial point. For the slaughter to be kosher, it has to be an active, back-and-forth cutting motion. You can't just press the animal's neck down onto the blade and let gravity do the work. That's called pressing, and it makes the whole thing invalid. This one distinction, it is everything. All right, so now the scholars have this new variable they have to deal with, this whole concern about pressing. Let's see how they try to figure out if that first simple rule can even survive this new level of scrutiny. Shmuel's argument is basically all about physics. If the knife is on top, the person doing the slaughter is actively moving the animal's neck against it. That's a cut. But if the knife is on the bottom, the animal's own weight could cause the person to accidentally press down instead of cut. It's a really subtle point, but it's a critical one. And just when you think, okay, got it, a huge problem pops up. Another ancient source is brought into the conversation, and it seems to completely contradict Shmuel's very careful distinction. This, right here, is classic Talmudic debate. This second text seems to say, hey, it doesn't matter if the knife is on the top or the bottom, which creates a direct conflict with Shmuel's whole worry about pressing. So, how can both of these things possibly be true? And this is where the logic just gets so elegant. Two different rabbis figure out how to solve the puzzle, not by throwing one source out, but by adding crucial context. Rav Zavid says the rule allowing the knife on the bottom only works if the blade is detached, so you can't use the wall for leverage. And Rav Papa suggests it's talking about a bird. A bird is so light that the risk of pressing just disappears. Both solutions are brilliant because they let both sources be correct. Okay, let's switch gears and look at our next case. The logic is going to feel very familiar, but the object is even simpler. Just a sharp piece of reed. It's an everyday thing, but in this context, it's packed with potential problems. So, we get this list of 5 things you just can't do with a standard reed. And the reason behind all of them is the same single, very practical danger: splinters. You really don't want a tiny, invisible splinter breaking off during a sensitive procedure like slaughter or getting into food where someone might swallow it. And just like what happened with the knife, as soon as this general rule is on the table, a contradiction shows up. And that forces the scholars to get even more specific, to find the exceptions that actually prove the underlying logic of the rule. Here we go again, right? The text brings up a conflicting source, another baraita, that says you can slaughter with the stalk of a reed. So which is it? Is it forbidden or is it allowed? And the solution is just a perfect illustration of their method. The conflict gets resolved by identifying a super specific detail. It's not just any reed, it's a special type of marsh reed that happens to dry into a hard, smooth surface that doesn't splinter. So the general rule still stands: most reeds are bad, but an exception is made for this one specific type because it doesn't have the original problem. And we see this exact same thinking with the rule against cutting meat. The rabbis come up with 2 more exceptions. Rav Papa says it's fine for cutting transparent fish innards because, hey, you'd be able to see any splinters. And Rababar Rav Huna says it's okay for soft bird meat because the meat isn't tough enough to create a splinter in the first place. The logic is always consistent. If the risk is gone, the rule doesn't apply. Even that last kind of strange prohibition gets cleared up with more context. The text explains wiping isn't about personal hygiene, which is probably what you were thinking. It's about wiping a wound, where a splinter could cause a nasty infection. Once again, specificity changes absolutely everything. So, after going through these ancient legal puzzles, what's the big takeaway? What does all of this really tell us about how these scholars saw the world? It's this really rigorous, repeatable process. You start with a general principle, then you actively go looking for challenges and contradictions to it. Then you resolve those fights by getting incredibly specific about the context, the type of reed, the weight of the animal, the softness of the meat. It's a method for pressure testing big rules against the messy details of the real world to get to a much more precise truth. And, this way of thinking is absolutely timeless. It pushes us to look past simple black and white answers. It makes us appreciate that a lot of the time, the most elegant solution is hiding in the details we might have just glossed over. It's a great reminder that sometimes the most important question isn't what's the rule, but, okay, what are the exceptions?